welcome to episode 89 of PauseCast, where I goof up the intro audio and screw everything up. I am Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. Welcome.
Good start to the return. I forgot to check the one thing, and everything goes bad, as it turns out. Oh, well, mistakes were made. Hey, how have you been?
I've been pretty good. How are you?
A lot better than I was before we took a break.
Good.
Yeah.
Bitter's always good.
Things were hectic. It was a bad mental health time, and so I needed to take a break from the show and step back from a few other things as well, kind of in general, to make sure that I stayed healthy and alive. And fortunately, I've come out the other side of that now, so
Good,
hooray.
yeah, it's definitely the right priorities to have. I'm glad you're feeling better now.
Yeah. It also gives me some time to evaluate the show a little bit and come back with an even tighter show, hopefully. So I hope you are all ready for some content, because we have some content.
It's true.
It's true, we've got some
The
content.
rumors can be confirmed.
Yeah, it's weird. I want to start out the show by shouting out to Sonic Fox. For those who don't know who Sonic Fox is, like Mark, prior to us recording this episode, Sonic Fox is a gay black fighting game player, and he has just come away with the biggest fighting game tournament's Dragon Ball FighterZ trophy. Immediately after winning it, he tweeted, "I'm gay," which is, I mean, that's a huge mood, first and foremost. Like, same Sonic Fox. If I won a fighting game tournament, I would also make that my first priority. Did that in his fursuit, because dude's also a furry. Absolutely iconic. Yeah. I'm thrilled with that whole tweet and that whole scenario. It's just absolutely brilliant.
You were saying that some people thought he was coming out, but absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Dude's had, like, hey, I'm, like, queer in my bio, in his bio for ages. So, like, it is completely unsurprising that he has tweeted, "I'm gay." It's good. I'm so happy. I'm gonna link that tweet in the show notes for those watching, as well as in the Twitch chat now, and I'll read it as well. The tweet that starts out by just saying, "I'm gay," and then says, "Also the best Dragon Ball FighterZ player on this fucking planet. Don't forget it." Which is, again, huge mood, iconic. Tweeted from the stage at Evo. Just, it was good. It's a good moment. I also, I want to talk about some video games. First and foremost, I have like a small thing that I want to talk about it, and if it's okay with you, Mark?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the small thing I want to talk about is I broke a world record today. Oops.
When you say oops, was it intentional?
It was totally intentional. I was
Okay,
going for a world record, and I managed to get it.
Nice.
I got it by about 45 seconds. And so this was in the Dirt 3 Single Discipline Championships category, and that was for Rallycross. So I have beaten the world record by 45 seconds, and admittedly, it's kind of a similar situation to your world record, Mark. The leaderboard wasn't blank. There was a time there. But regardless, it wasn't a very good time by the runner's own admission. And they were just like, oh, it was kind of a shitty run, but someone needed to set the pace. So I've set a new pace. The run is pending approval at the time of recording. But hey, world record.
It's cool, and like you were saying here before the show, you feel like you can do better, so I won't be surprised if you beat your own record.
Oh, I'm absolutely going to do better. There are time losses in 2 to 3 of those championships that I could very, very easily make up. and some experimentation to do with different vehicles and stuff to see if I need to change how I'm playing a little bit to go faster. So we'll see.
Does this tend to settle into like this vehicle is best on this track, and everyone who gets or is close to the record is using the same vehicle?
I don't know that is the case. I've been putting up competitive times with kind of whatever's been available to me fastest in the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly just category choice, it seems.
Okay.
So when you start a race event in one of these categories, it offers you a selection of like, oh, here's vehicles that are from the 80s, from the 70s, that are pro cars. It offers that sort of choice, and so I guess runs tend to fall into, oh yeah, we're using this particular class of vehicles because it ends up being the best.
Makes sense.
But specific vehicles doesn't seem like that is so much a thing.
Sounds like that's well balanced then, I guess, if you can pick a preferred vehicle out of a set and it's not going to be like you have to pick this one or you don't have a chance kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not picking the like first option as well, you are kind of at a disadvantage, if very minor, because menu time is also counted in there.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that to me. I find that bizarre. As someone who doesn't follow speedruns.
That's not so bad. Quantum Dot in the chat is also saying, I didn't know you did speedruns, Jess. Yeah, I did. I've posted a couple times in Call of Duty Black Ops 3 in the past, and that was mostly just for some of the free run theater. So this is my first actual like lengthy 1 hour long run, and I've got a lot of improving to do on that. It's a racing game, so it's a natural fit for me.
An hour is tough because I mean, if you mess up in the last 50 minutes, in like the 50th minute or something, it must be really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you just kind of have to finish the run almost.
Yeah, I can just understand, if it's like under a minute whole thing kind of thing. At least if you fail, you can try again real quick.
Yeah, if you're trying to beat world record pace like that, sure, that would be an instant reset. But otherwise, I don't know. I personally, if I fucked up at that point and wasn't trying to go for world record pace explicitly, I would just finish the run. I could still make up that time later,
Definitely, I'd have done the same. You mentioned in there as well my record. There's some big quotes to go around that. What happened, I think I've mentioned it before, but if I haven't, or if people don't remember, when GTA Online first launched, and it was really hard for anyone to get onto it because, like, it seems every multiplayer launch, it was poorly handled. They didn't have enough capacity. So when I finally did get on, and I just went and did a random race, I unlocked a special tattoo that you could only get if you were a world record holder, and I think I was just the first person to do that race. So I technically had a world record for a little bit. Either that or it was a bug. I don't know.
I should talk about the fact that I was the number one Beat Hazard player in the world on iOS for a time.
Beat Hazard?
Beat Hazard. It's a top-down shoot-'em-up based on your music. So you can choose whatever music you would like, and it'll generate a level based off of that, and create some flashing visuals based on how intense the song is. It's a very cool game. Not recommended for epilepsy havers, as I used to joke that it is the game that epilepsy warnings were written about. It is very, very flashy. I used to be number one on iOS at that game, though, in nice. I think 2 or 3 categories, and I kind of let my scores languish and haven't played in a while.
I mean, fair enough.
That game's good. You want to talk about what you have been playing in our absence here?
Yeah, so it's been a few weeks, so clearly I've played a single game.
Yes, of course, naturally.
So I just kind of decided that I never played a lot of the Fallout 4 DLC. I should revisit that game. So I reinstalled Fallout 4 and have played something like 34 hours of it somehow. It's just been the only game I've been playing the last few weeks. I've been enjoying it more than I expected to, especially since I still haven't played through the DLC or like I meant to. But yeah, it's been interesting to return to. It's not a super new game, obviously, and I'd already played like 150 hours of it, so I was familiar with a lot of the stuff. So first thing is what I do whenever I'm playing a Bethesda game again is I want to install a few mods because I know that if I don't do that as like the baseline experience, I'm going to be thinking about it while I'm playing the game, what I could put in. And since I'm looking to see the DLC, I didn't want anything that's going to like change the balance a lot or anything. You want that sort of quote authentic experience when I was seeing that for the first time. So I didn't want anything that would make combat a whole lot different or anything like that. So I grabbed first thing I noticed when I started playing it, because I'm the kind of player who will just walk everywhere, except the walking speed in Fallout 4, if you're playing with a keyboard, is really frustratingly slow, and the running speed is really strangely fast when you're indoors and there's no in between. And I tried it for like a few hours and I just got so frustrated. Ended up finding a mod that adjusts the walking speed. Unfortunately, it's not set up in what I consider the best way, because you have to go into Vault 111 into a particular place, pick up an item and equip it in order to adjust the walking speed, instead of it just happening after you install the mod. And that's important because another one I installed was an alternate start mod, so I wouldn't have to play through the same stuff I've seen a dozen times from every time I've restarted this game. So I had to like start a new game, go and pick that item up, go into the console, find what the ID of it was so I could add it via the console to my character that used the alternate start. But aside from that, the few mods I've had are good. There's one that just means if you've got your gun out in first person, you're not always aiming it right in front of you. You can be a little more idle. And the alternate start one, is so nice. It meant I could start at level 10, so I didn't have to just play for 8 hours before I was even still a low level. Because I knew that the Automatron DLC, which I had played most of before, doesn't trigger until you're level 15. And I was expecting to do that one first, so I didn't want to have to play for like 10 plus hours before I even got to the DLC I was planning on starting with.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I mentioned I played 34 hours, so obviously that hasn't entirely gone to plan, but starting at level 10 helped. And also, I didn't have to do the first part of the main quest. I didn't have to start in the same place. So it's just nice to have things a bit fresh to start with.
We got someone in the Twitch chat asking which particular alternate start mod you used.
Yeah, I just saw that. I'm gonna
Start Me Up.
I'm gonna Google that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
it is
it was,
Start Me
because
Up.
that's the one that has the visited link color on it in Google.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. No, it is. It's the one that also changes dialogue, so that it doesn't have references to you being from a vault, which is actually really nice. I found out around level 25 that because I googled it, because I was like, how the hell do I start Far Harbor? You have to do some of the main quest to do it, so I actually had to backtrack to Vault 111. And if you start outside Vault 111, it gives you a way of starting the main quest that is consistent with it not being about you, and the dialogue changes as well. And I was pretty impressed by it, honestly.
Okay.
So I've done the start of the main quest. Sometimes the dialogue doesn't entirely make sense because they've pulled out bits that refer to you being from the vault, but also without those bits, there's context missing. So I'm going to assume no one cares about Fallout 4 spoilers, but if you do, there's some coming. Fairly early in the main quest, you meet Nick Valentine and you talk to him about your experience in the vault, and you describe the person you saw, and he figures out who it was. And it's a bit weird this time where you don't describe it because you didn't see it. You tell him about how you found a body with a holotape recording on it. And he goes, aha, it must be this guy. It's like, dude, I just said they don't talk much and that's kind of it. But it's fine. Like, it's still nice to be at least consistent with the way it let you start the game. And I know that it's apparently it changes some of the dialogue in the DLCs as well to remove references to being from the vault. But I hadn't played them before, so I won't know what I'm missing there.
It's cool that they actually have, like, they've taken out that dialogue entirely to aid with the immersion. That's that's a cool tweak.
Yeah, and there was some that they'd added in, and I assume they just sort of found it from elsewhere. Like, you literally tell Nick, I found a holotape. Like, it's voiced. So they must have got that from somewhere and put it in. So it's good. It's like, they did what they could to fill in the gaps as well where they've pulled stuff out.
Right.
I haven't hung around a lot with Piper. I assume she still calls you Blue. It just won't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm impressed by it. I had only expected it to be an alternate start thing. I didn't think the dialogue would be much, but from what little I've seen, because I've been avoiding the main story since I didn't start in Vault 111, from what little I've seen, that's well done.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, those are the only really important mods I've got. I think I also have one to make nights a bit darker, but I've also been sleeping through most of the nights, and the unofficial patch, because I feel bad if I don't have it. And I also, having played a lot of the game before and honestly never enjoyed the combat, I kind of geared my build around avoiding combat, and I don't mean high speech. I mean, I just want to kill everything in one hit from a long way away. So I've got strength of 1, an endurance of 1, a charisma of 1, charisma of 1,
right,
a luck of 1, and my agility and perception are really high because the perks they wanted are like right down the bottoms of those.
Right. Okay.
Because I want all the sneak attack bonuses. I want all the non-automatic rifle bonuses. I want all the scoped rifle bonuses so that I can just use my sniper rifle to kill stuff in one hit while I'm crouching at a distance. And I also found out there is a perk you can get that is... I didn't expect it to be broken, but it feels like it is. The idea is, the way it describes itself is, it lets you shoot through walls with a slight decrease to accuracy. Now, the trick to that is, it also lets you shoot through people to the bits inside them, which includes shooting through the outer shell of a robot to the weakness inside it.
Okay.
Sentry bots, normally, can go into a state of being overheated where they expose their fusion cores, which are difficult to hit but do huge damage. But with this perk, I can just shoot them inside them. And it turns out you've got a really increased chance to hit based on how much of it you can see. So often it'll just be 95% chance to hit. I think the first sentry bot I saw, I killed in one hit. Just by crouching and shooting the fusion cores with the sniper rifle. Same for every time I see someone in power armor. Even if they're facing me, I can hit the fusion core that's on their back just because I can target it in VATS. So that feat has been indispensable. It also lets, because I was doing the automatron stuff, a lot of them have got weak points on their back, and I can just shoot them from the front, so it's very useful. I also was lucky to run into some content I hadn't seen before from the base game, which gave me a special pistol that lets you shoot many more times in VATS. And there's another perk that every time you retarget the same thing, you get an increased chance to hit. So even if I've got a really low chance to hit something, if I shoot them in the head like 12 times, which I can do, by the end, I'm just hitting them every time, so it's enough. So yeah, I don't enjoy the combat, so my build is entirely around not having to do much combat.
It's not... I wouldn't say your build isn't about not having to do much content, combat, as much as it is just breaking the combat open in a hilarious way.
I mean, I guess. I do still have a panic button, which is a shotgun, just for if I run out of action points and stuff gets close to me, I can just shoot them like 8 times with a shotgun blast. And I don't always hit all the time, because if you get hit in melee, like, the camera moves around. But it's normally enough to kill them. So, yeah. I just don't want to stay in combat. I don't want things to shoot back. I don't want things to hit me, because once that starts happening, I just don't enjoy the combat of Fallout 4 that much.
Right, yeah.
But I'm obviously enjoying the game because I've played like 34 hours of it this time. I noticed just before the show, it has surpassed my time in XCOM 2, which I've spent 160 hours in, and I've now spent 163 hours in Fallout 4, so it's actually just overtaken that.
And I imagine it's going to continue to, because you have some stuff that you haven't done yet.
Yeah, that's right. So there were 3 DLCs I mainly wanted to do, because I think there's some DLCs that like add workshop stuff. I didn't care so much about that, but there's 3 that aside from that, I've played through some of Automatron before this. There's also Far Harbor and Nuka World, neither of which I had touched. Automatron starts automatically at level 15, so it was fairly quickly after I started. Oh, that's right, my intelligence is high as well, so I can level up faster. So I've played through Automatron, which was really annoying, because the whole time you've got this robot following you, but I'm playing a stealthy character.
Right.
This robot can be spotted by enemies from so far away, and if they get spotted, I'm in combat now.
Right.
So it was so nice to be able to leave Ada behind at the end of Automatron, because it did not mesh with the way I played this character. I like the robot stuff, but like, this character wasn't the right one to play through that DLC, I guess. But I did. And the final fight took me like 15 tries, because you can talk your way out of it if you have a high charisma. Mine is 1. Sorry, someone in the chat just said you can tell Ada to go away. I know, but I felt like if I was playing through this DLC, I should have her with me. So I didn't.
That's fair.
I did often tell her to wait here, and then I'd go off and start a fight, and then like she'd show up from somewhere else joining the fight, and it was like, no, what are you doing? You're supposed to stay way over there. And like, because they still wouldn't be able to see me, but then she'd show up, and then they'd know where I was somehow. So that was fun. But the final confrontation of Automatron starts with you in an area lit by spotlights, talking to the person who's about to send a bunch of robots to fire you. So you're not hidden. You can apparently talk your way out of it. I have a charisma of 1, so I couldn't. Basically, I had to start the conversation, but then move so that the conversation ended without properly ending, and I could go and hide. And then I think eventually the fighting just started, and I had to reload like 15 times during the fight because I kept dying. Finally beat it. Did not really enjoy it as much as I'd hoped to, but it was okay. And then it took me a while to figure out Far Harbor, because if you aren't doing the main quest, it's just not exposed to you, and there's no hints on how to start it or anything. The other two, Nuka World and Automatron, you just automatically pick up a radio signal when you hit a level threshold. So Far Harbor I have started. I haven't finished yet, but I've been running the main story, so it doesn't feel as roleplay as the main game did, where I was just wandering around, and that was fun, because now I'm just like, I should do these quests, even though it doesn't always quite make sense, I guess, for the character I'm playing to do them, but that's fine. And I've been enjoying it quite a lot, but it's frustrating to be in an area where the sort of defining thing about it is that it's always really foggy. And my special thing is that I use a sniper rifle and kill things from really far away. So, yeah, there's that.
Spligget Moose in the chat asks, how are you doing against the gulpers and anglers in Far Harbor? They seem really unbalanced to me.
I've been fine so far. So VATS is really good at letting you spot enemies you haven't actually seen yet, and I've noticed that anglers won't enter. You can target them in VATS before they enter combat with you when they're under the water, and gulpers are often hanging from trees out of combat. And if I get a sneak attack off on them on their heads with my sniper rifle, I can just spot them in VATS and then do a manual shot to guarantee I hit. I can generally kill them in one hit. And if there's multiple, I can get my pistol out and just shoot them 15 times in the face and they die. I haven't had any trouble with them yet. I did, however, have to fight a legendary fog crawler for a mission, and that I had to like stand on a rock where it couldn't reach me because it has so much health. It was ridiculous. But yeah, it's the thing. Every time I get in combat, I feel like I need to find a way to break it rather than just having fun because I feel like I'm good at combat. I've never had that feeling in a Fallout game. Yeah. The quests in Far Harbor have been kind of interesting. The main gist of the actual Far Harbor settlement quest line seems to be like, nobody likes you, so you have to help people, and then maybe they'll begrudgingly like you. And that's sort of what the dialogue is referred to in a few places. Except, only one person has been anything but kind to me, and he's a dick, and I don't want him to like me. So that quest line's been kind of incongruous that way. I'm not sure if I want to finish it. But yeah, I've been enjoying it so far. I'm looking forward to getting onto Nuka World because I hit level 30 while I was in Far Harbor, so I can now start Nuka World when I want to, and that's where I'm at the moment. I don't know how far through the story of Far Harbor I am, but I've had quests that have taken me almost all over the island so far, so I think I'm getting a decent way into it.
Right. Okay. You want to talk a bit about Nuka Worlds? Like, have you gotten there yet?
I have not. I know nothing about it yet. I haven't touched it yet. I haven't. I'm finishing Far Harbor before I get into Nuka World. So I'm a high enough level that I can now listen to the radio station that would start the quest line that'll let me go there, but I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
I'm a bit worried about it because high level stuff I've noticed has a tendency to be bullet spongy, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen in Nuka World because it unlocks at a relatively high level. But I mean, I'll see.
Okay. Well, do you want me to... Should I go on to talking about Fallout New Vegas, the Fallout game that I have been playing?
I've got one other thing just quickly, but I mean, I think this might lead into New Vegas as well. This is something that happens in Skyrim as well as Fallout 4. And I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, mainly because these are games where you can ignore the main story, but both of them have a kind of substantial part of the game that does not exist until you hit a certain point in the main story. In Skyrim, that's the dragons. If you until you hit a certain point fairly early in the main story, there aren't any dragons. In Fallout 4, it's the Brotherhood of Steel. Until you kill Kellogg, which is what you have to do to hit Nuka World, the Brotherhood of Steel doesn't exist. Once they're there, the Commonwealth feels a lot more dynamic because they're often showing up in their vertibirds to come fight things. So you often see a lot of other fights. Before they showed up, it's just sort of gunfire in the distance that you can hear, which is still cool, but it's a lot more evident once there's actually like flying machines with things shooting out of them that you can see as well. So they just showed up and then I left.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's kind of a shame, I guess, that you have to hit a certain point in the main story in a game where you can completely ignore the main story before they even show up.
Spligget Moose says there is a mod that makes it so that the Brotherhood of Steel show up after you do the mission with Dance at the Cambridge police station.
That makes sense. That was the first way I was ever exposed to the Brotherhood of Steel when I played Fallout 4 the first time. I haven't done that mission this time. I've gone past and heard the fighting and thought, nope, that's not something I want to... I remember there's just a lot of ghouls and I didn't feel bothered, like I could be bothered at that point. With my special pistol now, I should be able to do it just fine.
Dylan says mods shouldn't have to fix games. That's true.
It's absolutely true.
Dark Souls shouldn't have been released in the state that it was. Because like that was a broken game on PC. But at the same time, like different context there, I guess, from Software's first ever PC game. And they mostly released it under demand from consumers who were like, hey, release Dark Souls on PC. And they were like, we don't know what we're doing. And they were like, the modders will fix it. And From Software said, okay. And just released a bare bones kind of busted ass port. And modders fixed it.
Yeah.
Sure enough.
Mods can be great when they just allow people to tailor a game to their preferences, but not everyone would want that mod. That's where I think they can really shine.
Yeah.
Because, mods shouldn't have to fix games. Although, when they do fix them, I'm still grateful. Obviously, I mean, everyone will be.
Yeah, that is a good take.
The main time I felt it was a needed fix, in this case, was the walking speed. I mean, if I had a controller, it would be fine, because you can vary your speed, but just on keyboard, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
The tutorial skip was really nice as well, because once you've played that 15 times, And that's why a lot of games add one in. When you're restarting the game, you can just skip the first section of it. Though it's less common in very narrative-driven games.
I should look into that for Fallout New Vegas, because I know that the beginning is an area that you struggle with a little bit.
And part of that's just because I've done the beginning and only the beginning a bunch of times. Every time I try to get back into that game, I fail. I don't know, I just struggle with it. I've heard so many good things, but I've never managed to quite properly get into it.
I think the thing that made it... So, we're going to talk about New Vegas now. The thing that made it work... The thing that made it really work for me in the end, I think ultimately came down to just really trying to sink myself into the narrative, play the role as deeply as I could, and just follow the main story along for a little while. Basically until I got into New Vegas, and then I started splitting off and kind of doing my own thing once I technically completed the first part of that quest. Like I think the beginning ends up lasting like 3 to 4 hours if you follow it through to the furthest extent that you can.
I think I'm just so used to in these games. I typically call them Bethesda games. I know that New Vegas wasn't developed by Bethesda, but it's based on the same engine as Fallout 3, right?
Yes, it is. I think it's still fair to call it a Bethany Esda game, but it's not a true one. I guess
it feels quite different because the first thing I do in honestly every Bethesda game is I look in the direction of the main story and then I turn around and run as fast as I can.
Okay.
I like treating those games as just a fantasy or post-apocalyptic science fiction like world simulator. I just get to exist in the world. And I don't have to worry about the narrative. And for someone who I talk so often about how I love narrative-driven games. I've never really felt captured by Bethesda's stories, but I've really enjoyed just the worlds. And I feel like New Vegas just really doesn't want me to do that. So I've tried going along the main route. I remember feeling as soon as I stepped off it just a little bit, everything felt barren. And yeah, I've heard so many good things, and I'm sure I'm missing out. But I've just never been able to make myself get into it for long enough to get to that stuff, I guess.
I definitely am of the opinion that you are missing out. I have spoken at length about how New Vegas and I have previously not agreed, because the world felt really empty to me. But and I think it's because I was approaching the game in the same way that you were,
Mm-hmm.
where we were trying to approach it as, it's a world simulator, kind of like Fallout 3 or kind of like Skyrim, because that was my prior experience of Bethesda games. Then I tried playing New Vegas, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? It's different. I don't like it. Really trying to immerse myself in the narrative and focus on that narrative, in contrast to Bethesda games, which historically do have very bare bones narratives. Like they have enough narrative to kind of justify their existence, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Where New Vegas has narrative 4 days.
Which feels a bit strange to me in a game where you do create your character, that they still have to fit into the same narrative no matter who you created.
I think it I kind of fits into, I guess, the same opening act. I could see any sort of justification for bringing a character into the setting that you start out in. If you're not familiar with the start of Fallout New Vegas, you are a courier, and as a courier, you were tasked with delivering a platinum chip to New Vegas, at which point you are shot in the head, the chip is taken, and you are left for dead. You wake up the next morning, and you make your character at that point. I think there's a lot of ways that you could make a character fit into that role, especially like even with science backgrounds and stuff like that. Like why would you run as a courier if you had a very scientific background, you could, in theory, if you wanted to make up a story there, you could make up a story about how, you were once this researcher at this university and you've fallen on hard times, like the demand for research isn't there anymore, and so you've decided, as a desperate ditch to get some caps and continue surviving, you took on this job at the Mojave Express. They accept couriers from any walk of life, and you decided to run this high risk, high reward job.
That's the thing, though. You can't make a character that just wouldn't take the job, or that would say, nah, fuck this, after you get shot in the head over it.
Right, yeah, I guess.
And I mean, like, it's fine. It's the narrative. I get that. It's just, this is why I think I've struggled. Because the characters that I make, I don't think tend to go towards that. They either are the type that would be like, oh no, fuck that, I got shot in the head, I'll go do something else. Or,
yeah,
I don't want to make a courier. I don't know. And I totally could just be like, well, yeah, this person is a courier. But then I feel like I'm not playing the character I want to play. And I'm so used to, in these settings, these games, being able to do that I feel the lack of it.
Yeah. I think it's better once you can let go of that.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Conceit and start like looking at it as if it were just another linear narrative game. And I know it's hard to put yourself out of that, but like if you were to look at it as if it were, I don't know, something like a Grand Theft Auto or a Watch Dogs, where you actually had like pre-planned missions.
Although, see, the thing there that those two particular examples you chose at least have in common is they give you a character. You don't make it.
Right.
That's the thing. I have to make a character, and then I have to sort of... It makes me feel like I have to decide that they fit this role rather than just being told it. I mean, I know I'm being so damn picky. I'm more trying to describe how I think without what meaning or wanting to, is just why I've struggled to get into it. Rather than being a criticism of the game, this is how I react to it.
We got a lot of good questions and comments in the chat right now that I want to go over real quick about this sort of stuff. All right, so I'll start with Dylan, and then you can pick your one after that one. Dylan says, "I can't play games like that, running away from the story. As much as I love immersive and detailed worlds, I fail to connect with things unless there's a narrative that anchors me or a goal, a seeming goal that I'm working towards. And part of why I can't get into RPGs is their lack of things for me to attach to, since the games have to accommodate for the different roles a player wants to play. I can take on a role or feel like I am a character, but only when that character is very firmly defined in that world." That sort of stuff is actually kind of why I end up liking games like The Witcher, which have a predefined character with a predefined history. And I also approached Fallout 4 in that way, and I think that made that game resonate with me, like, narratively a lot more than it did with a lot of other people. That game is not universally liked for its narrative, but I found that if I could think about it in the same way I think of The Witcher, where I think about, oh, my character has this established history, and start thinking even just a little bit about that established history within the confines of the game and expanding it outwards from there, I find that works really, really well for me as a role-playing experience. And again, that made Fallout 4 connect with me in the end.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work for everyone, for sure, but I think it's a worthwhile approach to consider.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that approach wouldn't work for everyone. And there will be times when it doesn't appeal to me either, and those are the times when I'm not playing games like this, I guess. I can find it pretty relaxed to just spend a few hours, feel like I'm inhabiting a character, I guess. Right. Kind of like playing D&D, except I'm on my own. But the way I've been playing Fallout 4 this time, I mean, part of it has just been going through the DLC, so that is a little more goal-oriented, I suppose. But aside from that, I've just been playing it sort of reactively. I've been thinking, I'm going to wander over in this direction and think about how the character would react to certain things. So when there's combat nearby or anything like that. Or if I go to a place, I'm thinking, is this the sort of place where you'd want to check for scrap? What would I take? What would I want to do with it? And then it's a bit more moment to moment, I guess. That probably wouldn't work as well with shorter play sessions. I mean, like I mentioned as well, I'm the sort of person who walks everywhere, so if you need the game to be more fast paced, then my style of playing Fallout would be so boring to do or to watch. I'm sure anyone would be bored watching it because I just walk around a lot. But I enjoy it. It's nice to be able to do that. I like that games let me do it.
No wrong way to play a single player game.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
I saw as well, Yadnom asked, do you not find Fallout 4 even worse about this, Mark? And that's a good point. I was lucky in that I found it easy for my first Fallout 4 character to be part of the story they set out from you, where you're a parent whose spouse has been killed and child's been stolen, you're trying to find them. I managed to lean into that without feeling annoyed about it with my first character, so I was lucky with that, because for whatever reason I just didn't manage that with New Vegas.
Right.
With this character, I've been very thankful to have a good alternate start mode where I can ignore that stuff. With the intermediate characters, I sighed as I went through the opening and sort of pretended it didn't happen, but at least when it finished, I could ignore it from there. I would sort of give the early stuff a wide berth, because otherwise the beginning of Fallout 4 feels open, but you are going in a pretty linear path for the first couple of hours. Like going through Sanctuary and Concord and stuff, it's quite linear. So I tend to avoid that, and I'll see the same sort of things there. So the first few hours can be annoying. So the alternate start, being able to put you in a different starting position to start with, is also very nice. Because sometimes if you played a game a bunch of times and you aren't really excited about the first few hours, it can feel like such a high bar to re-entry, I guess, if you know you're going to have to do the same 4 hours of game that you've done a dozen times already in order to get back into the good stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that turned a little rambly there, but I hope I answered the question.
I think that did. Getting back onto Fallout New Vegas stuff.
Yeah.
Another reason that I found to love that game is I've learned to love the things that are broken in that game. And I think a big part of what has made that work for me this time is broken, funny shit that happens as a social experience, because I've been streaming a lot of what I've been doing with Fallout New Vegas. And so when things break, it becomes a thing that myself and everybody watching can just have a laugh about, rather than it just being oh, something stupid happened in my game, haha. Oh well. It actually just it becomes a thing that is funny, and it's recorded as well. It means I can look back on this this goofy thing that I had happen as a one-off.
What sort of broken stuff have you seen?
All kinds of things, from my character moving on their own in vats, and then just stopping and instantly shooting, which has been always a blast. I have seen dialogue just repeat on a loop. I recently was playing Old World Blues, and part of that DLC is you are seeking out your brain after it has been removed as part of this weird sci-fi plot.
I have questions, but let's ignore them for now.
There are so many parts of that are not explained. Trust me, believe me, it's just buck wild. You end up talking with your brain, and your brain recalls specific in-game events that you have seen through doing some of the quest lines.
Okay.
And in my case, it got stuck on 2 particular lines of dialogue and just repeated that ad infinitum. And I tried to click through as fast as I could, and it just would not stop. I clicked for like a solid 30 seconds, and it was just going to keep going. So I had to restart the game and choose different dialogue options.
Yikes.
Yeah, that was a fun bug to run into. It was very, very goofy because I didn't fully parse it was happening at first.
You thought it was like a joke?
Oh, I thought it was like, oh, it'll happen one more time, and because I haven't done a lot as the courier here. I haven't seen a lot of these cool like questline endings.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, it'll be like 3-4 things, and it'll go. And then it just kept going and going and going. Yarnum says, quote, my brain got stuck on 2 lines over and over again, and I couldn't fix it, end quote. Big mood. Yeah. I feel like that's what executive dysfunction is your brain just gets stuck on 2 things and you just can't do anything about it, and you don't get anything else done. Also anxiety, maybe.
It's a thing.
Oh my god. On that note, actually, just really quickly, shout out to BoJack Horseman for having, I guess, one of the most realistic depictions of anxiety on television. If you want to count Netflix as television, I certainly do.
It's the only TV I watch.
Holy shit, BoJack Horseman. That hit close to home.
I haven't watched that show. Maybe I should.
That's a good show. The first season doesn't have the same tone and content as the second, third, and fourth.
Okay.
The second, third, and fourth seasons start focusing in a lot more on personal issues rather than what the show started out as, which was like a lampooning of celebrity culture. And so that's what the show starts out as. And its strong suit, even in the first season, is still the personal dramas and characters. And so seasons 2, 3, 4 just start expanding and expanding on those. And it transformed the show into something that I really, really appreciate. It's something that feels very real, and it's always kind of validating to watch in a lot of different ways. It's really good.
Nice.
It's a really good show about dumb cartoon horses. Dumb cartoon animal people. Like it's tremendous. Content warning for a lot of things in that show. I want to be clear. I can't summarize a lot of those episodes, but there's definitely some stuff that could be potentially triggering if you are not prepared. So maybe do a little digging for yourself before you start watching the show if you are not already familiar.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Should I talk again about brains? Because you said you had some questions about DLC.
It's more like you're talking to your own brain, but what's in your head? How do you talk and find
cyber brain.
Oh, right.
They've justified it by saying you have a cyber brain.
Okay, is it better than your brain?
It actually does give you a perk when you get the cyber brain, when you find out about it.
So it's exactly the same as your brain, except a little bit better.
Yeah, basically.
Fuck your brain then. Why do you need
when
it?
When you put the brain back in, it actually modifies that perk by maintaining some of the advanced technology and adding additional effects while lessening some of the perks that you originally got. Okay. Same also applies to your spine and heart if you want to put those back in or not. Yep. Yeah, this game is good. The New Vegas DLC is very goofy in its own. Old World Blues specifically is very goofy in its own right.
It's interesting. I haven't really seen much goofiness in Fallout 4. I don't feel like.
Yeah, Fallout 4 takes itself very seriously. New
Oh,
Vegas.
there is the alien that shows up at level 20,
Okay.
I
Okay.
suppose.
I don't know anything about that actually.
When you hit level 20, an alien spaceship crashes, and you can go there and follow a trail of green blood to find a dying alien with an alien pistol.
Okay. Huh. Yeah. All right. Fine.
Yeah.
I guess maybe in reference to Mothership Zeta from Fallout
Yeah,
3.
probably was. Which I never played. Another DLC, Fallout DLC I never played.
I had fun with that one. That one was also really goofy. I like the idea of DLC as a way to be goofy that is separate from the main game and a way for you to experiment with things away from the main game as well.
Was Mothership Zeta like a separate mode or anything like that? It wasn't, was it?
No,
No.
it was there's a quest objective in Fallout 3 that you could go to and it would put you onto the mothership, you know?
Right.
But I feel like DLC as a way to experiment is something really cool and interesting. Far Cry 5 has been doing that a little bit.
Actually, Far
With
Cry
their
in general
DLC?
has done that, haven't they? Because
Yeah, I
Far
guess
Cry
with-
4
I guess
had
with
the
Blood Dragon
prehistoric
prior
one.
to this as
and-
well, yeah.
Yeah, that one too.
And then Far Cry 5 has been doing some sci-fi experimentation and some experimentation with setting, and it's kind of interesting to see that it's bringing some technical improvements and adjustments to the engine as well, so it feels different. Yeah. Kind of cool. Speaking of engines and art styles and all that good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I'll bring my final game of the week here. Ni No Kuni II, Revenant Kingdom.
I
You heard
remember
about
you.
this?
I remember you talking about the first one. I think I knew the second one was out just because Steam yells at me every time I start.
Yeah, Steam yells at me. That's the mood.
Every time I start it. Yeah. But yeah. So you enjoyed the first one, right?
Yeah, I enjoyed what I played of the first game. Ni No Kuni 1 is upon reflection, it's a little bit rough around the edges, but it was a cute and fun game for me to play for a while. I haven't gotten back into it because the mechanics definitely got a little rough on me,
Okay.
and so I just kind of wanted to back down, and I haven't gotten back to the game since. But moving on to Ni No Kuni 2, because there's no real requirement that you finish the story of Ni No Kuni 1 to understand. It's been an absolute treat.
Nice.
Even on that note too, coming from Ni No Kuni 1, if you're a returning player to the series, there are a couple of references in both setting because it very clearly takes place in the same world, but a couple hundred years later.
Okay.
There is also references to the narrative of the first game as part of the required story. You will have to do a puzzle, and part of that puzzle is reading a story and then moving through a level after you have read the story to set things in the correct order. In doing so, you actually end up reading a summary of the first game in its entirety, which is a really, really cool approach, I feel.
Is it made clear? Like, if you hadn't played the first game, would you know you were reading a summary of it?
No, you wouldn't, I don't think. It's very subtle in a way that I didn't immediately notice. It took me a couple of chapters, and then I was like, oh, hey, wait a second. I recognize some of these things. This is actually a summary of the first game.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remembered enough of the details of the plot to that point that I clued into that, and it was such a cool moment because it was completely unexpected. I didn't expect to be reminded of this or to theoretically get to see what the end of that narrative kind of was. It was a really, really cool moment.
Nice.
It's a good game. Another thing that's really helped with me getting into that, when that game came out, the initial reviews, one of the frequent points of criticisms was that the combat was too easy in that game, and
Okay.
that it just became kind of a slog because it was just so easy. You would hit a couple buttons and the fight would be over. So a few months later now, Bandai Namco has added a difficulty patch to the game, which adds a hard and expert mode, as well as leaving the normal difficulty completely untouched. So there's now just extra difficulties on top of it.
Can you
I had
change like during the game, or do you have to start a new game?
I believe you can change during the game.
Nice.
I have chosen to start the game on hard because I remembered hearing that, oh, combat's too easy, and I'm usually okay at this style of game.
Mm-hmm.
So hard seems like it'll be a good balance for me. As it turns out, that has really, really helped.
Good.
Combat has never felt too easy at any point. It's kind of given me exactly what I want in terms of difficulty in an RPG. I'm dealing with characters that go down pretty frequently when I'm either not in control of them and just screw up a few dodges and stuff like that. I'm getting decent chunks of health taken out of me. So I had characters go down with some frequency, but there's backups in your party always. Your party doesn't go down if you lose the one character, unlike Persona. So it's meant that I have to deal with that on occasion. I need to assess, do I need to revive this character or am I good? I've only occasionally wiped as well, it means I'm progressing through the game at a solid clip, and I don't feel limited by the fact that, the difficulty's been amped up and you're getting killed all the time. I don't feel limited in my progress in that way.
This is a random battle kind of encounter system, is it? Or
no, you actually can see all of the battles that you run into.
what sort of difficulty curve is it? Because I've seen, well, curve's not the right word, style perhaps. Because I've seen kind of two main ones with battle-based RPGs, I suppose. One is at the start of each battle, you have full or close to full resources, health, and everything, and that individual battles are easy or difficult, and the other is sort of more stamina-based, where there'll be battles you won't have any trouble with, but when you've got 50 of them in a row, and then maybe a boss fight at the end, that's when you can have trouble. Which sort of style of difficulty is this one?
I think it kind of straddles the line a little bit, I want to say. There's lots of battles in a given dungeon, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you're given ample opportunities to heal, both kind of as time goes on. There are little sprite-like characters called Higgledies that have passive abilities, and one of them is to heal you a little bit as you go on.
Okay, but you have to plan for that healing. It's not something that happens automatically.
It's something that happens automatically.
Okay.
You can also use items and such like that. Yeah. So healing is just kind of done over the course of the game, kind of naturally. You're never really having to manage much in the way of stamina. Like Persona 5, you have to manage your magic points as you go on.
Yeah, I was just thinking Chrono Trigger is kind of like that, where you can heal without using items outside of combat, but it uses mana, so until you get a way to restore that, which is items or risking a save point or something, you are still slowly dwindling your resources, and it does become some aspect of the stamina-based thing.
Yep, so that's definitely not the case here. You have you still have magic points, but they can't be used for abilities and are instead just used to power your ranged attacks.
Okay.
And in order to get them back, you need to perform melee attacks.
Oh, right. So it forces you to do a bit of both. Well, encourages you to do a bit of both.
It encourages you to do a little bit of both, for sure. There are enough enemies that are dangerous up close or require a little bit of a ranged approach because they're just flying about. There's enough of that sort of variety that you are running into combat that is constantly varied. The save system itself, though, is really generous as well, that will give you full HP, full MP immediately as soon as you save there. And save points are very, very frequent, and you can save at any point if you're in the overworld. You can't save at any point in a dungeon, and you have to go to a save point. But when you're just in the overworld, you can save at any point.
I'm not sure if I should describe that as standard or old school.
Standard school?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely the way older RPGs used to always work. I don't know how common it is with newer ones, but it's definitely a recognized way of handling saves.
Yeah, I think you'd find it's pretty common, especially in the JRPG genre.
I think the fact that I've played games on DS and 3DS quite a lot over the past several years has probably made me feel a bit different about it because you can just put the whole thing to sleep instantly. It's not technically a save,
exactly.
but you can suspend the game.
Yeah, I remember doing that even on Persona 4 on the Vita. Just like throw it into suspend, and away I go. Um, I also really like one particular system in Ni No Kuni that reminded me a bit of Mother Base from Metal Gear Solid 5. Do you remember that? Where you could construct different buildings, and you had to pass real time in game in order to make progress with it.
And all those people walking around who would thank you for hitting them and throwing them.
Yeah, exactly. So Ni No Kuni II has a similar sort of system, which is called the Kingdom system. The story of the game revolves around you making a kingdom, and so you actually get to build it yourself, which is really, really cool. So you'll start out with a few basic buildings, and as time goes on, you can do side quests that will recruit people to your kingdom, and they have their own specialties, and you can assign them all throughout to boost research, boost the resources you're getting, all of these sorts of things. It's really, really cute. And a lot of the benefits of that system happen passively. And so it's reminded me of kind of idle game mechanics, like you're thinking like Farmville and Metal Gear Solid 5, how it had the research mechanics and stuff that you had to wait in real time for. It's less constrained, I would say, than Metal Gear Solid 5's system, because there's no microtransactions or anything like that to speed up the research time.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike in Metal Gear Solid 5, where that definitely was a thing that was there. Yeah, so the time to do research, the time to do all of these things is a lot less. And that's a really good approach. My question for you, though, in talking about that, is this is a big AAA game. Do idle game mechanics like that, where it requires you to spend real time or in-game currency, not anything that you can pay for, but you can spend in-game currency on that to speed up some research. Does that sort of mechanic have any place in your mind in AAA games like that? Personally, I think Ni No Kuni 2's approach to it is really well balanced, where it lets you use resources that you're already getting in-game and doesn't require any sort of external payment or ask for any external payment. I think that that's kind of fine, and it turns it into, oh yeah, it's a thing that I can leave running and I come back and there's passive benefits.
I think it's important how games manage it as an opportunity cost thing. Is that, like, I'm thinking, if I remember correctly from Stellaris, which I haven't played in quite a while, you pick research priorities, sort of, and it's spending a resource to speed up research, but the opportunity cost is just, I'm doing this research instead of that research, and it's not a resource that can be used across a whole bunch of different things. Also, just the whole idle game mechanic thing is reminding me of both the older Monster Hunter games that had a farm where you would go between missions and you'd catch some insects and mine some rocks and fish some fish. And also on the other end of the scale, the base management side of XCOM. When you were describing it, I was thinking, hey, a lot of these descriptions could also apply to that. But I think the feeling of XCOM's base management is quite different. It doesn't feel idle. It's got that constant ramping up kind of pressure to it. Though neither of them have paying to speed up research stuff. Yeah, I think the opportunity cost is going to be the thing there. Because when you're paying with external currency, then yeah, it's not an opportunity cost. It's just a cost to make the game less not fun.
Yeah.
when it's managing an opportunity cost, it's just it's setting priorities, right? It's deciding, am I going to do this or am I going to do this? It can be interesting then. It can be about a balance and preference thing. And it can sometimes just give you the illusion of control where really you're just progressing fairly normally anyway. So much better than doing a microtransaction crap.
Does the real time aspect of that bother you at all?
I mean, depends on how long it is. Like with the Monster Hunter farms, yeah, there was some real time waiting because you did the actual animations of mining a rock and catching some insects. Each specific one was short and you could stop at any point and you just wouldn't get any more, and that was fine. If it was a matter of go and play the game for an hour and then come back, I don't know how I'd find that. I haven't really played many games that do that.
So it kind of is along that sort of sense. You can set up research projects and set up things and just you'll have an hour timer on them. And it's never anything story critical that takes that long. I think there's been one or two things that have been like, oh, these are the tutorial things that you can build, and they take a minute, and you can do some other stuff while you do that.
I just realized there are some games I've played like that, but it's phrased differently, so I didn't immediately think of it. But go on. Yeah, that was kind of it. That was it. It does take roughly that amount of time. Yeah, I'd forgotten about the Assassin's Creed games where you can send assassins off on missions. That's exactly the same thing.
Stuff.
It's just phrased differently. I haven't actually done that in Black Flag, but I remember some of the Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy games let you do that.
Yeah, I believe Brotherhood and Revelations both let you do that, where 2 did not.
Yeah, that sounds right. I would have done it in Brotherhood because I don't think I played Revelations. But I mean, that's the same kind of thing. And actually, when I played it in that game, it was fine. It was kind of fun to have the different people that I was managing. So yeah, it can be fun. It depends, I guess, on how much time I'm likely to spend in the game, right? Like if I'm not going to be playing it for hours on end, then making me wait an hour for something is just not going to be fun. And it depends on if it starts to feel like a chore, that's when it's a problem, right? You never want your games to feel like a chore.
So far, at the very least, it hasn't felt like it's been a chore. It's just felt like, oh, this is a nice thing that I can just kind of do. Cool. And I get small benefits out of this, and I get to do side quests to bring people into my town.
Yeah, so I just hope it never gets to the point where it feels frustrating because you want something to have happened already. If it's all just passive benefits that it's like, hey, that's nice, rather than, no, I need this, then yeah, that sounds nice.
Sweet. Let's see. Star Trek Online and Star Wars The Old Republic both have gathering and crafting mechanics where you send people off to do things for a real-world period of time, says Splicket Moose in the Twitch chat.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That's kind of interesting. I guess it ends up being... It all ends up coming down to just being a similar idle game mechanic.
And sending people off to get materials and stuff is something you can speed up just by doing it yourself, I guess, as well.
You can send multiple people out to do the same thing, but gather and crafting are held behind a time gate. Yardgnome737 also says that No Man's Sky Next added this as well with the freighter mechanics, which I'm not all that familiar with the freighter stuff because I've only barely kind of scratched the surface of the next update. So maybe we'll have to come back to that at a later time to talk about once I've got some hands-on experience with the freighters.
Also, that's going to be confusing referring to the previous update as the next update.
You know what?
I know exactly what you mean. It's called Next.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't help but notice.
That game is pretty okay now, by the way. I feel like that's worth addressing.
Yeah, well, we talked about it last time. Wait, did we?
I don't think we did.
Or was that just when we were talking?
I think it was when
recently?
we were talking recently about the future of the show.
Yeah, never mind then.
I need to play it a little bit more. All in good time. All in good time. All right.
Is that what? Speaking of, is that one of the
Mm.
games that you're looking forward to playing this next week?
I think I'll say yes. I
Yeah.
think I will say yes. I am looking forward to playing the No Man's Sky next update a little bit more this week, as well as Overwatch. They
Yeah.
have a big event going on for the next 3 weeks again. It's the Summer Games with the Busan Summer Games in South Korea. So I'm looking very much forward to playing that and getting some of the cool new skins.
I'm glad they have tied a seasonal event to a physical location.
They continue to do that specific stuff with the Summer Games. They don't really tie things like the Halloween or Christmas events
I mean,
to that.
Halloween and Christmas are times of the year rather than seasons. They just have Northern Hemisphere seasonal associations.
Quantum Dot says last year it was Rio just because of the Olympics. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, tying to a location just at least means I don't feel like they've just forgotten about the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. I think that's fair. We are so often forgotten by the games industry.
Yeah. I get so frustrated at Steam because they got it right this one time. Where they had, it was a Christmas one, and they had like a snow globe, but if you inverted it, there was a beach on top. And if you were there from the Southern Hemisphere, the beach was on top. And from the Northern Hemisphere, the other way around. And they got it right. They got it so right this one time, and they've fucked it up literally every other time since.
Releasing in winter 2018. Oh, so you mean now?
Yes.
You're releasing it now? Right now? Because it's winter 2018? Where's the release date?
Yeah, do
Cowards.
we get it 6 months early?
Do we?
That'd be nice.
I can think of one time that actually happened. I want to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, we got Far Cry 3 like 3 months early here in New Zealand. I remember because I had just moved to the country, I think, when it launched, and we got it 3 months early here.
Is that why you moved?
No, of course not. It was so weird though, because I got to play that game well before everybody else. It was just like Far Cry 3's just come out, and I was like, what? No, it's been out for months. What are you talking about? What?
I always wonder though, every time I see a release date, I think, okay, so do we get it on that day or the next day? Because it's not consistent. Yeah. Sometimes we actually do get it when we're told we will, which is earlier than most of the rest of the world. Sometimes they just mean everyone else, and actually we get it when it's that day for everyone else, which is the next day. Be nice if every release date would, like online release date kind of stuff, would say a time zone. And just be midnight in this time zone. And then sweet, I know when it's coming out for me. Cool.
No matter what, though, you can't take away the fact that Christmas comes first for us.
Is it actually first? Is there anyone ahead of us?
No, there is not.
There you go.
We are in literally the first time zone here in New Zealand. We have gotten sidetracked. What are you looking forward to playing this week?
I'm going to play more Fallout 4. I've got a bunch more Far Harbor to do, and then once I'm done with that, and I don't know if that'll be this week or not, I'm going to check out Nuka World.
Okay.
That's my plan. I'm just hoping that as my level gets higher, things won't get too bullet spongy, because I've really put a lot into this kill everything really quickly, like in 1 or 2 shots deal. And if it gets bullet spongy to the point where I run out of action points in most fights, I'm going to be having less fun. Yeah. Hasn't got there yet. I'm just hoping it will remain that way.
Fingers crossed. And that's going to do it for this 89th episode of PauseCast. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard and want to support the show, we have a few ways you can do that. First, you could tell a friend, a neighbor, anyone who might be interested in the show about it. We'd really appreciate that. And we don't advertise the show, so you sharing the show with people helps get us out to as many people as you can. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can do so by going to patreon.com/pausecastshow. You can also donate to us using Coffee for a one-time donation by visiting bit.ly/pausecoffee. You can also contribute emails to the show. If you have questions that you want answered, you can email us, pausecastshow@gmail.com, and we will answer those questions live on the air each week. Thank you very much to all of our patrons. Arky, Mary, Para, Sammy, Dove, Corey Bat, Ash, Laminated Moth, and Gray for their support of the show. It means a lot.
It does, thank you.
Thank you so much to Arky for literally just donating to the Patreon. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much. What else we got going? I guess we need... is it just music? I think it's just music, right?
You're online somewhere.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. Okay. I forgot how the show works a little bit. Mark, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at HonestUniverse, and I write a blog as well, though not about video games, at honestuniverse.com.
I highly recommend checking out Mark's blog, by the way.
Thank you.
Some really great writing. You can find me online at bird.school. You can also find me streaming online at maximumgun.org. Thank you to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island. You can find Leon's music and download some of it for free at soundcloud.com/LEYAWN. All right, and that is again going to do it for this 89th episode of PauseCast. See you next time.
Bye.